In this lecture, we will talk about how we can dynamically create Lightning Web Components at a runtime. So if you know, or if you have ever worked with Aura component, there is a library class which is $A, and the method is create component, which help us to dynamically create the component at a runtime. But there is nothing like that inside Lightning Web Component, but we have something similar which we can use, and that is what we are going to use here in this lecture. There might be some requirement, we wanted to render multiple components based on some conditions, and due to some best practices, we don't want it to mix the single all the files in a single HTML. Like you have multiple components, suppose that you have 15 to 20 conditions, and based on all those conditions you wanted to switch template. That is again, if you are putting everything inside a single file, which will be messy and it will not be easy to read for any developer. In that case, what we can have is, we can have multiple template inside a single Lightning Web Component, and then switch with the help of render method of our Lightning Web Component lifecycle. So if you have not gone through with this lifecycle hook, there is a lecture inside the first lecture inside section 5, which is I guess 26, number 26. So please go ahead with that if you are not aware about Lightning Web Cycle, whatever the complete life cycle of LWC is. And we can also create multiple component like this. We have one main component, and under that we can have multiple HTML and CSS file based on our need. So let's quickly see how we can do that. This is our VS Code, and the very first thing we are going to do is we are going to create a Lightning Web Component, and we will say here dynamic component. Once we have created this, first we are going to use a very simple example over here, and then we'll talk how we can embed the component which are not part of that template. The template we will we will see how we can do that. So this is our component that we have just created, not this one. And under here, suppose that we wanted to have some sort of a lightning card. We have here some card here, we can say a dynamic component, and in the icon you might want it to change it to some sort of custom icons, or if you don't want it, you can just keep it as, because that doesn't matter, because we are just going to see the demo. So I'm just going to change it to somewhere else here. Okay, so this is button which is not needed. Let's quickly have this body. So what we will do here is, I'm going to use some here, let's say that this is parent component. Okay, and under this parent component, in a new line, I'm going to have one more button here, which will be a lightning button to switch the template, basically to change the condition here. Okay, so we're just going to change it here. I will say here switch template. Okay, and I can use some icon name here as well. So icon name will be utility colon. So I've got this. There is one method that is associated with this button. We have to develop that. So we need to quickly go to class and then use this button. Okay. So first thing that we talked about, we need to use render method of our Lightning LWC lifecycle hook. So let's quickly talk about what render method does. We already talked about in the lifecycle class, but that is okay if we talk very a little bit about this. Render method is something which evaluates the variables which you use here inside render method and returns the HTML template. If you are using render method like this, you are not returning anything, you are going to get the error. You must need to return a valid HTML template. And by default, we wanted to display this dynamic component, the content of dynamic component, whatever it is. So for that, what we will do is, we will write an import statement. We will say that import, and I can say that let's say first template. Okay, from where we need to import, we need to import from the same file, and this is the name of our HTML template which we want, which is dynamic component dot html. So we will say here dot html. So what it will do is, it will import the HTML file whatever it has, and then we can quickly return from here. We can say return first template. So whatever you will write, you will not here. Whatever you will write here, you will be able to see that into your output. Okay, so this is very simple. And what we will do is we will create one more component here. We will say, let's say that create a component template one, okay, and I'll say that true, or let's say that template one is false. And in the return statement, what we will say is, we will say if this return will say if this dot template one equal to false, then return first template. Otherwise, again, for now we are going to return first template in both the cases because we don't have any other template. Next what we will do is we will go here and we will deploy this, okay. And whenever user clicking on this button, what we will do is we will say this dot template one equal to this dot template one. We will first check if it is true. If it is true, we will say put the value of template one as false, and otherwise say true. So if the value for template one is true, it is going to set as a false. If it is false, it is going to set as a true, okay. And as soon as we will make the changes on this template one, this statement is going to recalculate again, and based on whatever output we are sending from here, that will our user be able to see, okay. And next what we will do is we will create a template here. So I will say here, let me quickly add a content. I'll say template one.html. I just created one HTML file here. And then what we can do is we have template. You must need to use this as a root component, as a root tag, okay. And then as I'm getting here, okay, this is for template one, okay. And then what I will use is, again, I will use some LWC card over here, and for the title I will change it to template one. I'm not going to change the icon or anything, and let the buttons be here. And then under this component, let should be narrow, and here we will say template one. Now we have got this template one as well. Under that, let's quickly create one more button here, br tag, and we will say lightning. It's a lightning button. It's a success, and label we will say switch template, the same label which we wanted to have. If you wanted to change the name of the button, you can change that. And if you have noticed here, handle click is something which is binded with both this button, okay, because these both the template are inside the same component bundle and they are using the same JavaScript class. Now next thing what we will do is we will import one more here, and this time we will say template one, and this should be here template one instead of yep, here it is template one, and the name is again going to be template one. Now what we will see, initially we wanted to use first template. So we said if template one is false, display the first template. If template one is true, display the template one. Now we are going to again deploy the latest changes that we have just developed. So again, giving you a quick recap, import all the HTML template which are there inside component. You will not be able to import outside of this component bundle. That's why we are creating more and more inside the same component. And then in the renderer, not renderer, in the render component, we are checking with the help of a variable. You might have multiple conditions, right? You can have multiple variables over here and you can check these, right? You can have like this. You can say here if condition, you can say if template one, right? So you can say return first template, okay. And then you can say here template one not, right? It is not. And then if you have something, you can say else if, you can use else if here, and those conditions, right? You can say if template one, you can return this template one, right? So that is what I did wrote into the single line over here. I can remove this, and that is again going to work. Now we have got this component. What we will do is our Salesforce developer environment, open that and replace with this, okay, whatever the component is here. And as soon as you will save this, it is going to show you the preview over here. And you see dynamic component, this is parent component. We got switch template. As soon as I clicked here, I got template one, and the body is again, the button is different. Again, I'm going to switch. So that's how you can switch multiple templates. You might have multiple You can have multiple HTML files over here. You can have multiple CSS files over here with the same template name that you have created. For example, you wanted to have template1.css here, you can see, and you can have some body, and in the body you can change the font size. You can say extra large. You can also say change the color. You can say some sort of royal blue. You can change the font family. So you might have multiple CSS for the multiple HTML. Okay, that's how it is going to work. And now suppose that for now what we had is everything we are putting inside here. You might having a question in your mind, right? Like if we wanted to use this custom permissions inside our dynamic component with the help of this approach dynamically, right? How we can do that? For suppose that we wanted to use a new template over here. Okay, not new, suppose there is one more template. We can say here, let's say template 2. Okay, template2 dot html, and use here I'll say template. We have template 2, right? First thing what we need to do is, as we wanted to use, I'm going to use template 2 here. Let me copy this again and paste it here. I have got this template 2. So what I can have is, I can say here, let me say template, instead of template 1 I can say template 2 equal to false. By default it is false, and inside the renderer else if, I can say else if, I'll say if this dot template 2, that means if this is true, return template 2, right? I can return that as well. This is what I have. I can return this, and as I already imported, but I don't have anything inside template 2. What I can have is, I can have say dot custom permissions. I just reused my component. You have some other properties you wanted to send, you can send all those HTML properties over here, and this is okay. This is definitely going to work. For that, what we need to do is, inside template 1 we will say handle click, and we can say that template 2. Okay, and this method is going to reside inside the same JavaScript class, and where we will say template 2. And inside what we will say is, we are going to make this template 1 as a false, and then we will say this dot template 2 as a true. Now we have made this, but there is one more thing that we need to notice. Inside this if condition, what we have said, we said if template 1 is false, it is going to return first template. So as soon as we will say template 1 is false, it is going to return this first template, right? It will not go to this condition. So in this condition we also need to put one more condition. We said template 1 is false and template 2 is also false. The same condition here we are going to say template 1 is true and template 2 is false, then only return template 1. And otherwise template this here we will say template 2 is true and template 1 is false, so that we don't overlap with any condition, we don't get there, and we easily switch our templates. That is what we said. And then let's quickly deploy this. So again, if this is confusing to you, I will just put here some sort of static text, and that will help you. Okay, when we wanted to have first template, which is our main template, which is if template 1 is false. Okay, we'll say if template 1 is false, then so first template. Okay, and we say that if template 1 is true, then so second template. This is what we did, and I hope up to here it is clear for all. Now there we introduced one more condition. We said that now we have one more variable, which is template 2. Now we have to include that template 2 in all these conditions based on what we wanted to render our final template, our first template, second template, and the main template. Okay, that is what we said here. Template 1 is false and template 2 is also false. That means now we wanted to display the main template. Template 1 is true but template 2 is false. That means we wanted to have template 1. Template 2 is true, template 1 is false. That means we wanted to show template 2. And then we can have one more button over here inside template 2. We might wanted to switch or we can say that LWC colon button, which is again, let's say base, and it is going to be template 2, whatever method you want it to have, right? I will say that switch template, and this is going to here again, and this method will reside inside this component, and this time what we will say is we will make both false so that we can switch our final template, and then we can just go ahead, deploy this, and check the final change. Okay, so we have successfully deployed. Let's go ahead and see if it is going to work. All wish me all the best. Okay, we are final here. We went to template 1 switch template, we went to template 2, which is displaying the custom permissions. We got button switch template. As soon as I click here, we are again to the final component. So that is how you can dynamically create the component inside Lightning Web Component, and you can replace, or you can say we have find the replacement of $a.create component. So that is it for this lecture. If you have anything, please feel free to reach out to me. Thank you.